Hey guys, Joyboy here with another theory. This one is going to be simple, but I think it's going to be interesting, and definitely it's a theory, so I figured I would go ahead and post it. So in this theory I want to discuss Jinbe and the poneglyph that he's bringing in his cover story to the Straw Hats. And I think that we can pretty easily deduce, based on just logic, what the poneglyph is, the information on the poneglyph, what it is likely to talk about. There's only really two options in my opinion, and there's one option that is way more likely than the other. So first things first, we know a lot about the kinds of things that are presented, the kind of information that are presented on poneglyphs. And Robin pretty much spelled this out for us, but we have poneglyphs that contain knowledge of the Void Century, so basically history-related poneglyphs. Apparently there's also poneglyphs that give direction to other poneglyphs. I'm not exactly sure what that exactly means, but we haven't really seen any of those in the story firsthand. There's poneglyphs that discuss the ancient weapons. We've already seen two of those already, and there's only one left. We've seen, supposedly we've seen the poneglyph that contains the information on Pluton, which is located in Alabasta. We've seen the poneglyph that contained information on Poseidon, and that was on Jaya, and now up in the Sky Islands. And so the only one left here would be the poneglyph that contains information on Uranus. This one is guaranteed, in my opinion, guaranteed to show up again. So we will eventually find the poneglyph that has information on Uranus. And then the last type of poneglyph is now the road poneglyph. And then additionally, we could also have a brand new type of poneglyph, or has brand new information, similar to what the road poneglyphs were to us a couple chapters ago before we knew anything about that. So now I'm going to systematically try and disprove some of the options so that we're left with basically fewer things to choose from when discussing what Jinbe's poneglyph could be talking about. So to start off with the easy ones, I do not believe that Jinbe's poneglyph will be a road poneglyph. We're told in the story that Big Mom has one of the road poneglyphs, Kaido has another one, and there's one on Zo. And there's only 4 total, so there's only one other one to find. Jinbe doesn't seem to remark on the appearance of this particular poneglyph, so it's not. I don't know if Jinbe's seen other poneglyphs, but I mean, I would assume so since there's one on Fishman Island. I believe that he would have been interested if the poneglyph was a different color. There's no indication of that. Just based on likelihood of Jinbe finding the road poneglyph, I feel like the last road poneglyph is going to be integral to the plot, and not be given to them so easily. It doesn't make a lot of sense for them to be searching for this last road poneglyph to find Raftel after they've beaten Big Mom and Kaido, and then end up having just Jinbe just give them the poneglyph as a storytelling. From a storytelling perspective, I believe that is the worst way that Oda could go about doing it, and therefore I do not think that Jinbe's poneglyph could be a road poneglyph. That's just not an option. The next one I want to discuss, and this one is a little bit more tricky, but is it possible that Jinbe's poneglyph is history related? I do not believe that it is possible for that to be the case. Throughout the entire story, we see that Oda has not given us any information related to the Void Century from any of the poneglyphs that the Straw Hats have encountered across their journey. You'll note. Let's take a look at the poneglyphs that the Straw Hats have gotten an opportunity to get a clue as to what they were talking about. Keep in mind that Robin has found a lot of poneglyphs, and I assume that some of those, or many of those, are history related, but she hasn't actually told anybody on the crew anything about what she's already found. And I think that's important because Luffy doesn't want to know anything like that. He would rather go through the journey without knowing a lot of this kind of information. So far, we've encountered, I guess, 4 poneglyphs. There was 2 in Shandora. One of those was sort of like a little scripture. It's unclear if it's actually a poneglyph or not, but it was discussing how the people of Shandor were basically protecting the poneglyph. So it's not sure if that's actually a poneglyph. And then we have the actual poneglyph, which on Shandor, which discusses Poseidon. We've seen the poneglyph in Alabasta, and that one discusses the ancient weapon Pluton. And then the last poneglyph that we've come across in the entire story is the road poneglyph here from Zoe. If you guys have seen some other poneglyph that you think that I've missed, chances are that was a filler poneglyph. Like there's another poneglyph in Alabasta which is completely a filler poneglyph, which means that it wasn't present in the manga and it was the anime taking creative license to add something to the story. What I think is important to note about poneglyphs related to history is, first of all, Oda has been avoiding those. And if you think about this again from a storytelling perspective, it doesn't seem likely for us to get pieces of the history at time. Even when we see a poneglyph that's related to history, like the poneglyph in Ohara when we have Robin's flashback, there's no specific details mentioned from that particular poneglyph. We get a little hint about a possible insight into the poneglyph in that probably on that poneglyph discusses the name of an ancient kingdom, and that name is never revealed to us. But I really do not think that in leading up to finding the real poneglyph and getting the full history, that we are going to get little snippets of the history along the way. That just doesn't seem likely. I truly believe that we're going to get this poneglyph from Jinbe, and then we'll find the road poneglyphs, and those will be the last poneglyphs that we find before we get to the Rio poneglyph, which is to say that until we get to the Rio poneglyph, there will be no history revealed to us from the Void Century. Or at least no specific history, but obviously there could be some sort of foreshadowing or something like that. And when I say this, I mean directly from a poneglyph. So from a writer's perspective, each poneglyph has to in some way progress the plot. And we've seen that from all the poneglyphs that we've actually encountered within the main storyline as we've gone across. Each of these poneglyphs has discussed an ancient weapon, which basically foreshadows the fact that we are going to find this particular ancient weapon fairly soon. Then we see the road poneglyphs, which is absolutely integral to the plot, and that was a poneglyph that absolutely had to be found. Do you think that we're going to find a poneglyph related to some obscure history that we're not really going to understand? It's possible, but the only way that would be additional to the plot would be like the one in Ohara, which discusses sort of the main purpose of the Void Century as a whole, which, we didn't read that poneglyph, but because Clover read that poneglyph, he was able to interpret it for us and then give us a clue as to what is the end game as far as the poneglyphs and their purpose in the story, which is the fact that the Ancient Kingdom fought with the world government during the Void Century. The Ancient Kingdom lost that battle, and because of that, their history was destroyed by the world government. And so that was absolutely vital to the plot going forward for us to better understand what these poneglyphs are. And I think that will be the only and the last poneglyph that we are introduced to in the story that relates specifically to the history. Because just from like I said, a storytelling perspective, it serves no purpose to the plot to go ahead and introduce, we already know the grand scheme of what's going on here. Anything specific is just it's not time for that yet. It would be better for us to encounter the real poneglyph and have it all introduced to us at one time, the entire story, rather than just a piece of it that makes no sense. So the long story short here is that the Jinbe's poneglyph, I do not believe, will contain it won't be a history-related poneglyph. So that leaves us 3 options remaining. We have a poneglyph which tells the location of another poneglyph. I'm not exactly sure what this is, so I don't really want to speculate on it, but we haven't seen one of these yet, and I have a feeling that it's just not, I guess a road poneglyph could be similar to that sort of idea, but I'm just going to ignore this for now. It just doesn't seem like something that is likely. It would be a really downer for a poneglyph just to say, oh, and you can go find this poneglyph at this location. There's really only one poneglyph left that we need to find, and that is important to the story, besides the road poneglyphs, and that is the poneglyph of Uranus. And so unless Jinbe's poneglyph tells the location of the last road poneglyph, which doesn't seem likely, it's possible it could tell the location of the poneglyph of Uranus. But then again, the Straw Hats don't structure their journey after going for the poneglyphs. They sort of go wherever they want to go, and if they happen to come across a poneglyph, then that's great. So with that being said, I don't think that we're going to find a poneglyph which is going to shed light on the location of another poneglyph. I think this poneglyph is going to have information that is going to be relevant as soon as it is read. So if that scratched off the list, there's now only 2 options. This poneglyph is related to Uranus. It is the last ancient weapon poneglyph, and that would make a lot of sense for it to be that particular poneglyph. And the second option, and this one is less likely, but it is possible, so I'm going to include it in here, is that this poneglyph reveals, and just like the road poneglyphs did a couple chapters ago, brand new information. It's going to be a brand new type of poneglyph which contains information that is unique to all the other poneglyphs. However, as I just said, this is not particularly likely, just because, while it's possible, you can't theorize something just because it's possible. It has to be likely, and currently there's no foreshadowing within the manga whatsoever that we'll have an additional new type of poneglyph. So I'm not going to guess that that's going to be the case. So with that sort of saying that it is possible, but very much less likely, then it seems very possible, to the point that I would say it's about 90% possible, just pulling a number from my ass because I like doing that, that it is Jinbe's poneglyph, the one that he's carrying, is going to contain information specific to Uranus. I've seen a lot of people theorize this for various reasons, but I just wanted to give you my take on it and why I think that Jinbe's poneglyph will be related to Uranus. It's purely just a logical storytelling type theory, but I think that it is extremely likely and thus worthy of telling you guys about. I could go on and sort of discuss other things related to this theory, like for instance, I have a theory that Momo is Uranus, so the timing here of being introduced to a poneglyph about Uranus, just because Jinbe, he's arriving to the storyline, they're not going to be able to read the poneglyph until Robin gets the poneglyph, which means that Robin won't be able to read the poneglyph until all the Straw Hats are united again, which will most likely be on Wano. And when you're on Wano, that's probably when, if Momo is Uranus, that we're going to be introduced to his powers in full, maybe, or just around that time, it's going to be very blatantly obvious that Momo is Uranus. Robin's going to read this poneglyph and be like, "Whoa, Momo, you're Uranus." I could discuss this in more depth, but let's just throw this out here because I feel like that's just going to generate a lot of unnecessary hate, when the basis of this theory is just simply that I believe that Jinbe's poneglyph will be related to Uranus, whatever Uranus may be, or whoever Uranus may be. And yeah, that's all I got for this theory. So let me know what you guys think. Leave me a comment if you feel like you have something worth saying. Like the video if you liked the video. Dislike the video